Now to some key numbers as the president blitzes the battlegrounds. The Real Clear Politics average of polls has him trailing Biden in Michigan and Wisconsin by 9 points and 5 points respectively, as you can see on the screen. Biden also ahead in Nebraska's congressional district, congressional district 2, I should say, by 7 points. That is considered a toss-up, and it's where the president is heading today. Let's bring in Tim Murtagh, Trump 2020 Communications Director. Tim, great to have you here this morning. We, of course, have a lot of questions. But first, what is the mood of the campaign 7 days out, especially after I just read through those polls there?
Well, the mood is fantastic. We are definitely upbeat and very cautiously optimistic that the president is headed for re-election. We know what's going on in these battleground states from our own internal data, and we know that in the states that are going to make the difference, states like Florida and Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, the president remains strong and is headed quite clearly to re-election. If you're looking at these public polls, and even the average, it's just a bunch of averages of flawed polls. The national news media has spent 4 years trying to destroy and defeat President Trump. And so I don't know why anyone would put any stock at all in polls paid for by those exact same media organizations. Of course, they're going to produce numbers which confirm their own worldview. And then you take the average. It's just an average of all those bad polls.
So I get that you're going to dismiss
we know what's real.
I get that you're dismissing the polls, as we've often heard from the campaign. That there are real numbers that we can look at, including some of the positivity rates in these states that the president is visiting today, where coronavirus is still a very real concern. And Joe Biden is still strongly polling above the president when it comes to who would handle the pandemic better in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Tim, Wisconsin's positivity rate, 7-day moving average, 28%. Nebraska, 22%. In Wisconsin, it's up 53% over the last 2 weeks, positive cases. This morning, the AP is writing worst place, worst time. Trump faces virus spike in the Midwest as he heads to these states. So why talk about the lockdowns rather than battling the virus itself when he addresses voters there?
Well, the president is battling the virus itself, and this is another area where there's a clear contrast between the two, Trump and Biden. President Trump wants people to be safe and take precautions, but he also knows that we cannot let the virus just lock us down again. He has been in a 9-month battle against the virus and has posted a whole bunch of victories and a lot of good news. The production of PPE and masks, now the development of the therapeutics, remdesivir being approved by the FDA. We are this close from getting a vaccine approved and for distribution, and it would go first in 100 million doses to our most vulnerable populations. Contrast that with Joe Biden, who is clearly the candidate of lockdowns. He talked about how we're facing a dark winter. That is not an optimistic message. If you're talking about locking people down again, for how long? 6 months, a year, 18 months? Remember, in China, they welded people into their homes. Does he recommend a similar style approach? I don't know. If you head the country towards another lockdown, lock the economy down, it would be devastating to people. Maybe if you're on a salary or if you can work from home, you can get by with that. But you cannot survive if you are in the service industry, if you work with your hands. You can't stay locked up in your house for another prolonged period. And Joe Biden is offering exactly that.
And that message does resonate with some voters, obviously, who are restricted by these shutdowns. But Joe Biden sees a serious opportunity here. Here was Joe Biden yesterday, really taking on the president and his COVID response. Listen.
Saturday, Donald Trump said that COVID-19 count wasn't really going up. Everything was leveling out. He suggested the doctors were inflating the numbers. Catch this, because doctors get more money. What in the hell's the matter with this man?
Is this message working for Joe Biden?
No, and it shouldn't, because this is the same Joe Biden that we know would not have restricted travel from China like President Trump did, because he called it xenophobic and fear-mongering. And so we know with certainty that we would be in a far worse position today as a country if Joe Biden had been president at that time. And Joe Biden, look, throughout all of this, Joe Biden has been completely unburdened by the responsibility of leadership. Every minute of this crisis, he has taken the coronavirus and turned it into a political weapon, even to the point of trying to scare people away from taking the life-saving vaccine when it is ready and approved and on the market for people to get, which, by the way, people will be receiving for free under the Trump administration. He spends all of his time trying to frighten people away from taking the vaccine. That is reckless. It's taking something that is so important to saving lives, making people afraid of it. That is endangering people's lives simply to score political points. It's reckless and irresponsible.
All right, I want to leave that there, and I want to head to immigration now. Here was the president yesterday talking about the border.
We're going to defend our borders. They don't want to have borders. They want to have open borders. We just hit 400 miles of wall. That's a lot. And this is a wall. That's exactly what Border Patrol and all of the law enforcement people wanted.
Where is the messaging when it comes to immigration, the border, the wall? It dominated the 2016 Trump campaign, Tim. And here's a headline in the Wall Street Journal, front page this morning. Trump campaign tones down immigration messages that dominated 2016 election. It says the issue barely makes the top 10 list of topics highlighted in political TV ads. It was a Wall Street Journal review that found it was the fourth most mentioned issue in his 2016 campaign, but has barely cracked the top 10 this cycle around. Was that a concerted effort to transition away from that topic that did so well for the president in 2016, Tim?
No, and as a matter of fact, the soundbite from the president you just played proves that that's not the case. The president still talks about this issue at every single rally just about. And it sets up a very clear contrast yet again. No one can mistake that President Trump is the candidate who will enforce our borders, enforce our immigration laws, protect American workers, and keep our communities safe by opposing sanctuary cities as well. Joe Biden, on the other hand, promises an open borders policy. He said for the first 100 days, if he's elected, he won't deport anybody. And then after 100 days, he would deport only those illegal aliens who had committed felonies. He would grant amnesty to 11 million illegal aliens, give them all taxpayer-funded health care, and provide them work permits so they can compete with Americans for jobs that they need coming out of the coronavirus crisis. On top of that, Joe Biden will support sanctuary cities, which is a slap in the face of these communities and people in those towns and cities who want safe streets. It is absolutely still a big issue, and it's no wonder that some parts of the media want to say it's being taken away as an issue, but the president talks about it all the time and will continue to.
I'm running out of time. I have so many things I want to ask you about, but when it comes to the economy, Axios ran a headline on the front page of their website this week that President Trump does not have a plan on the economy. He talks about a big, beautiful tax cut, but we haven't really got real details from the campaign. Will we hear more in the coming days? Will he get more specific about those tax cuts and what his plan is to do to get us out of this rut that we're in due to the pandemic?
Look, voters know that the president built the world's best economy once and is already doing it a second time. His approach has always been to keep taxes low, allow people to make more decisions for themselves about how to spend their own money that they've earned, keep regulations low, get government out of the way of entrepreneurs, get government out of the way of farmers so farmers can thrive. What do you have on the other side? You have Joe Biden. The president said it at the top of this segment here.
What about the president's
Joe
plan?
Biden's
How
main
low?
plan.
What does that tax cut look like? What is the specifics?
Look, I will let. As you know, the campaign doesn't write legislation. The president's goal is to keep taxes low. He has talked about further cutting taxes for the middle class. He has often talked about allowing people to keep more of what they earn, making it cheaper for businesses to hire people. And look at what Joe Biden is offering, raising the corporate tax rate. That'll make it more expensive to do business in the United States than it is in China. Another case of Joe Biden looking out for China ahead of American workers, plus raising taxes by $4 trillion. If your question is, who's better on the economy, we welcome, and in fact, we are dying for that argument, because it is quite clearly President Trump, and it's not even close. Even the bad public polls show that. Right. President Trump is the leader on the economy. He built the world's best economy once. He's already doing it a second time. Joe Biden is a disaster. Voting for NAFTA, caring more about China, raising taxes.
Time, but please come back soon. Thank you.